Hey everybody, Riot Mort here, and I am back with Chloe, one of our tech designers who worked really hard on the shadow items, and we are here to do a rundown of the TFT Reckoning mechanic, which is shadow items. Chloe, how you doing today?
Bit early for me, but good.
Bit early. All right, cool. Well, why don't we jump right into it and start talking about what shadow items are and how different they're going to be than chosen. Sound good? Cool. Okay, so shadow items are basically base components. You can see here on the slide that there's BF Sword and Shadow BF Sword. There is no difference between the components themselves. Is that correct, Chloe?
Yep, the components are identical other than the snazzy border.
Nice. All right, but when you combine the items, so for example here, we're going to combine with Tear of the Goddess, and you'll notice you only need one shadow item to get a unique effect here. You don't need both. But you'll notice the difference here is that you'll get a different item. So Sword plus Tear, for example, makes Spear of Shojin, but Shadow Sword plus Tear or Shadow Tear plus Sword gives you Spectral Spear of Shojin. Does that sound about right?
Yep.
Cool. And so generally, shadow items are a more powerful version of the item. So here you can see Spear of Shojin gives 8 mana, but Spectral Spear of Shojin gets 14, but at a drawback, where in this case the wearer deals 25% less damage. So as you were making a lot of these shadow items, was coming up with the drawbacks one of the interesting challenges for you guys?
Yeah, because we wanted to make the drawbacks be an interesting problem to solve while you're playing the game, without being an impossible problem to solve while playing the game.
Nice. I think as we go through these two, you'll see that there's a bunch of really cool, like, that sounds like a massive drawback until you start thinking about who you can put them on and how you can overcome that drawback with other items. So, cool. Now, as for shadow components, I think the first question that comes to people's minds is okay, how do I get them? And we've introduced a new mechanic called the Armory. The Armory, the way it works is at stage 2-2, 3-2, and 4-2, you will actually be presented with a choice. And at this point, in 2-2, you can either choose between a shadow item and a normal item. At 3-2, it'll be normal items. And at 4-2, it's 2 shadow and 2 normal, and you only pick one each time, right?
Correct.
Cool. Now, do these items come from the base item pool that you already have? The
No, these do not draw from your item pool, and the item pool that it's drawing from currently resets in between shops. So you're not going to get 2 Shadow Giants belts in the same shop or 2 regular Giants belts in the same shop. But you might see a Shadow Giants belt in round 1 and a Shadow Giants belt in
Gotcha.
or stage 4. Sorry.
Gotcha. So it's possible if you've already dropped a lot of belts and you get to 4-2, you might still see more belts. But that's why you also increase the choices to 4 so that there's more ways to hopefully avoid that situation.
Yep.
Nice. This is one of the things we were talking about in the learnings article, where this set mechanic really gives you some agency to choose how you want to go. And the shadow item system itself, if you don't want to participate in it, you can avoid it. So,
Yep.
nice. Okay, now the other way you can get shadow items is the carousel. And I believe, Chloe, correct me if I'm wrong, usually there are 2 of the 9 items that are shadow, but it is possible for it to be 1, 3, or 4. Is that right?
Uh, it is possible for it to be 1, 3, or 4, or in a very rare case. No, 4 is the maximum.
Okay, 4 is the max. Nice. So again, same thing. The shadow system you really have to opt into and pick yourself. You have to decide, I really want the shadow item. They do not drop from normal PvE mobs. So it's impossible to just randomly get a shadow sword, for example. Nice. And then I guess the only other way you can get these is the Draconic trait, which if you want more information on that, check out the video with me and Witty where we go over the traits. But I'm pretty sure those are the only ways to get shadow items. Is that correct?
Yes.
Nice. So, again, a lot of control here. Not quite as random as our previous item drops. So, With that, let's go over every single shadow item. You ready, Chloe?
Ready.
All right. So first off, we have Caustic Deathblade. So Deathblade gives you a bunch of AD. Caustic Deathblade gives you even more AD, so it's a bigger item, but you lose 25% of your max health.
Yep. This is one of 3 caustic items. All 3 of these items are going to make your carry more powerful, but at the cost of really needing to protect them from damage.
Yeah. This, and I think we'll talk, I think Death Cap's one of them for sure. These are almost like what I would call like the basic shadow items, right? It's like very clear, you get more damage, you're more fragile. Super easy, super clear, super good to understand. Works really good on champions like Aphelios. So, yeah, I feel like this is one of our basic examples of shadow items. Does that sound about right?
Yep, this is the I want to be a glass cannon.
Nice. All right, let's keep going. Guardian Fallen Angel. This is a fun one. The big difference here is when you res, instead of resing at 400 health, you res at full health. But when you res, you lose 50% of your attack speed, which is massive. So normally Guardian Angel is like, I put this on my carry to protect them. This makes it seem like you really don't want to put this on a carry.
And you'd be right. You really don't want to put this on the carry. You want to put this on a frontliner, someone who's going to get a big benefit from coming back with 100% health versus 400 health.
Yeah. This item can do some really cool stuff with like Warmogs also, because it's like you come back with a lot of health. And like you said, with tanks that take a lot of damage to generate mana, the attack speed's not nearly as bad. I think one of the more fun combinations is probably Volibear with Revenant with this also, and it's just like, you can't kill him. Have you seen any other combinations that you've been pretty excited about?
Excited and terrified of this on Garen also.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, Garen's a good one, because the constant shields, and then when you finally kill him, just kidding, he's back. That's a good one. Nice. All right, let's keep it going. We got like 40 more to go here. Zeke's Bleak Herald. This is one that turned out really good and really fun right away. I think when we playtested this item, it was like, cool, this one's done.
Yes, immediately.
Yeah, but instead of giving you and the 2 allies next to you 30% attack speed, instead you drain attack speed from the 2 allies next to you so that you yourself get 70% as the current tuning. This is the most attack speed we've ever had on a single item for like where a user. So like for example, Draven, 70% attack speed is like kind of nutty, but there's this cool positioning puzzle of who do you steal that attack speed from and who are you okay with losing that?
And you can't get the benefit just by not putting them next to someone. You have to figure out who to drain one and who to drain from.
Yep.
And that'll involve experimenting with putting it in the front line. Who can I afford to take it away from in the back line? Who does this not matter on? And that's a lot of fun to figure out.
Yeah. One of my favorites here is Jax, actually, since Jax is melee in the Ironclad comp, because that way you can steal the attack speed from the tanks, and then he gets that massive burst right away.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, Sword plus Rod. This is an interesting one. This one's probably secretly really good, but oftentimes hard to appreciate. The wearer of the Gunblade can't heal with this item, but they will heal the nearest ally that's missing health, so it never goes to waste. And it's a higher number, 50%. What are your thoughts on this item?
So this item is something that can turn your secondary unitemized carry into a supporting healer for your big carry. So if you have a Karma, for example, who you haven't itemized, and really your carry is your Garen, is your someone else in your Dawnbringer comp. This makes Karma, instead of being a little bit of extra damage, and some serious survivability for the rest of your team.
Yeah. And some of the bigger spells with this item can provide a lot of healing to your team. I know we've seen some Vel'Koz's with this item that's just like constantly healing the rest of his team back to full in a redeemed comp. That's another fun one. So I think this is one that's going to take players a long time to figure out how it's good, but once they do, it's pretty good.
It's going to take some time to get used to the itemizing and off carry like this,
Yeah,
um, but I think it's a lot of fun.
nice, cool. So yeah, this is I would say this is one of our like more advanced versions. We talked about how Deathblade was like a very simple, more damage drawback. This is much more. Hey, it's a very different use, and you have to think about it in a very different way. And so you'll see as we keep going through these, there's a lot of different types of shadow items.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Sword and Cloak. You know, it's funny. Right before we started recording this, I was watching GV8, and he was saying that he thinks this is the most powerful item we've ever printed. So it'll be interesting to see on day one of PvE if that's true. But basically, Bloodthirster got a bit of a rework where it's very defensive and gives you a shield, whereas Sacrificial Bloodthirster is much more pure aggression. Is that right?
Yes. You are giving up some of your survivability in order to get even more damage.
Yeah, losing 33% of your max health is a big chunk, but you'll heal that back up if you've got a lot of offense. But being that low at the start of fight does make you pretty vulnerable to assassins in particular. So that's kind of the risk I think you'll take running this item.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to see if GV8 ends up being right, but it'll be day one of PBE. Worst case, it's a little strong. But one of the other things I think
I feel confident it's not going to be so strong that people are stacking 3 of it on their carry.
Okay, that is a great point because players will ask, what happens if you put 3 of these on your carry?
We very carefully chosen the number of 33% so that your unit will not die, but will end up with 1% of their maximum health at the start of combat.
Nice. There's something about that sounds really funny of just like starting at 1%, and if you can just barely pull it off, you heal back up to full.
Make it work.
You get 120% attack speed. I don't know. That sounds like a YouTube video in the making. The nice thing is too with a lot of these items, you'll notice there's a lot of numbers. This gives us a lot of balanced levers for the live team, so that if the item is overpowered, okay, well then now it's 30% attack speed, or they only get 33% life steal. So there's plenty of ways for us to adjust this item. All right, let's keep going. Sword plus bow. This one is one of the ones that if you're looking at all the information that just went out, I guess today, although if you're watching it, it's yesterday, that is different. The version that was they had the version that was the execute version that we moved away from. But instead what we've gone to is a more sort of general use case Giant Slayer. Is that right?
Yeah. I don't want to say a duller Giant Slayer.
But
something that does a little bit more damage more of the time at the cost of sometimes doing less.
Yeah. This is an item that like most 2-star champions have 1100 health. So most of the time it's 40% increased damage, which is pretty good. But if you start hitting something really small, you get 20% decreased damage. And I'm
Start
guessing
hitting something small, like for example, something with Cursed Deathblade.
True, that's true, because you can use Cursed Deathblade to avoid being hit by the evil Giant Slayer. That's true. Yeah, and this is the kind of item that I'm guessing these numbers will need a little tuning here and there, but because it is coming in pretty hot. But it is a more general use case Giant Slayer, whereas normal Giant Slayer most of the time is a pretty bad item. So, cool. Sacrificial Infinity Edge. Why don't you tell us about this one?
This is another one of the sacrificial items. You may have noticed the same word on Bloodthirster. This is going to be an item that every time you proc it by critting, so every time you attack is going to deal you damage. Another item where you are giving up some of your current health for more power.
Yeah, this one's cool because you will do yourself a lot of damage. Like a Draven losing 5% of their max health every auto can hurt, but pair that with a normal Bloodthirster, and all of a sudden it's like, just kidding. I've
right.
got around this. This also does work with Jeweled Gauntlet, which can do some really wacky things. So
Yep.
be careful. Because what was it? Jeweled Gauntlet plus this plus Vel'Koz is like every tick of his spell is taking 5% of your max health.
So a lot of your max health
Yep.
pretty fast.
Yep. Brand would be another one. Like every tick of Brand spell would slowly kill you. And that's one of the challenges of the shadow items, I think, is just making sure that you play them correctly. They're a bit more skill dependent.
Going to ruin your day a little bit more if you slam them at random.
Yep. Yep, for sure. All right. Sword plus tier. We already talked about this one briefly. Pretty straightforward, though. Gain more mana, but you do less damage.
Right. So probably if you put this on, again, your karma, on your damage dealing spell caster, you're gonna get some value from this. They're going to be dealing damage with their spell more often, but less damage. But one of the probably better uses of it is going to be putting it onto a champion whose spell isn't for doing damage. Someone like Lulu, someone like Taric.
Yeah. Yeah. Lux has been another good one. There's also, you can actually make a pretty cool choice with like Ivern, for example, because while his Daisy does do damage, summoning more daisies and getting that knockup ends up being really strong. There's also one other thing to talk about here, I believe, with both Shojin and Spear of Shojin, is that they don't. It's not an on hit anymore. It's a basic attack. So there's no more Hurricane cheating with this. There's no more like if sharpshooters were a thing, it would work here. This is literally every time you basic attack, you get mana, and that has allowed us to buff it, so it can be pretty good here.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Oh, this one's interesting because this is another one that changed since they've seen the information. Bramble Vest, and we'll mirror this with Dragonclaw later, but Bramble Vest, quite a bit different here. But I think you'll see the parallels pretty clearly here. It's kind of like basic Dragonclaw. It just reduces incoming physical damage by 50%.
Yep. Going to be a really good generic tank versus AD item.
Yeah, it seems like Bramble is like really good against like crit, people running Infinity Edge, but if they're not and they're running say Deathblade, I think Refracted Bramble Vest will end up being much better. Is that right?
Right. So these are two different defensive option profiles. Rather than Refracted Bramble Vest just being unilaterally better than Bramble Vest, but having a drawback, it just does something completely different.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most common questions I've seen about our defensive item profiles, is that this doesn't feel like it has a drawback per se. It's more just a different function. Can you explain a little bit about why we went down that road?
So, sorry. I would say that all of our shadow items have a drawback, just some of them don't have a drawback with respect to not having an item on you at all. They have a drawback with respect to the original item. So Refracted Bramble Vest doesn't negate bonus damage from incoming critical hit. That's a drawback with respect to regular Bramble Vest. And instead, you get to reduce incoming damage by 50%.
Yeah.
There are a few other items like that too. So like Hex Tech Gunblade, which we talked about also being one of our complicated items, is I don't get the normal benefit of Gunblade healing myself. I just instead get this other benefit.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of looking at it. So, cool. All right, let's keep going. Got a lot more to go here. We're still in, at least we're past the swords. All right, Eclipse Cape. So this is Sunfire, except it procs more often, bigger range, same burn, but also burns yourself. Though the thing to note here is the burn is not grievous wounds. It's just the damage. So you burn yourself for 4% max health, but you're not grievous wounds, meaning if you have like a healing aspect, you can still kind of heal through it. Is that right?
Yes, this does not apply grievous wounds to you. It just burns.
Yeah. This is an item I think we found to be very powerful in the early game, especially with that 3 hex range, and you can kind of hit some backliners with it. So it's a more sharp version. But again, you kind of need somebody who can not die so quickly is because of their burning themselves.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, let's keep going. Armor plus rod. I love this item. This is one of my favorites. Very different purpose than Locket. Locket, we saw it in Fates, for example. Locket was used to like give a bunch of extra bonus health to your sharpshooters or your assassins. Locket of the Silver Lunari, instead of giving you the flat healing, makes you take 25% reduced damage, but you gain 5 less mana per basic attack. So like you're probably not going to want to give this to your rangers, but instead you kind of want to probably put it on the front line, and it's a lot of power on the front line.
Yeah, but both parts of this item make you prefer to put it on the front line. You both want to put it on someone with higher health to start with, and you don't want to be taking away a unit's primary way of generating mana. So it's a very different profile from Locket of the Irons.
Yeah. The thing I really love about this too is that typically tanks generate their mana by taking damage, and part of that formula is pre-mitigation versus post-mitigation. And so this lets you have essentially more effective health to generate more spells, and in a way sometimes cast even more often if you're one of those like frontline tanks. Like giving this to a Volibear or Taric, I think are both really great options.
A fun frontline mana item, just a little bit.
Yep. Perfect. Cool. Ooh, okay, this is another one that I think people are excited about because it's probably a little OP early, we'll have to see, but Gargoyle Stoneplate of Immortality. Same deal, everyone targeting you gives you a bonus, but instead of armor and magic resist, you get 70 health every 2 seconds.
Yep. So this is another item where there's no drawback per se, but instead of the normal output, you're gaining health. One of the of Immortality item.
Nice. This one I think is probably one of the few items that's really fun to stack with itself. Gargoyle Stoneplate plus Gargoyle Stoneplate of Immortality on your single frontline champion. Let's say 5 people are targeting them. That's 100 armor, 100 magic resist, and 350 health every 2 seconds. That's a very tanky champion.
It is. We've seen that a good few times in playtests.
Yeah. Which is a good time to talk about this, by the way. Shadow items can be stacked with their normal items as long as the normal item isn't unique. If it is unique, you cannot stack them. So, for example, no Guardian Angel plus Shadow Guardian Angel, now that Guardian Angel is unique. But you can stack these. Is that right?
Correct. They stack with their vanilla and shadow versions of items stack just like 2 of the same version.
Nice. Cool. So yeah, look forward to some very powerful frontliners with this one. We'll have to see if it's OP, but we'll go from there. Cool. Oh, Titan's Revenge. So this is another item that changed. There was a version that I think our early alpha testers were playing where it was like they exploded. That ended up being a little difficult to deal with. So this new version is every 4 seconds, the wearer's next basic attack deals 40% of the total damage they have taken since the last empowered attack as true damage. Now, is this pre-mitigation damage or post-mitigation damage?
Right now, this is pre-mitigation damage. So, and the number here is definitely, this is after one playtest worth of thought into tuning, and probably is going to change. But it is still dealing right now about the same amount of, it is dealing damage the same way. You're dealing a % of the damage that you take throughout the fight, just distributed over the course of the fight, rather than all at once right at the end when you die.
Nice. I really like this item. I mean, just to go back to the last one, let's say you have a Gargoyle Stoneplate and, Shadow Gargoyle Stoneplate, and then this, you can tank a lot of damage, and then every 4 seconds auto for like 600, 700 true damage.
Yep.
pretty good. Like, it creates a really cool tank profile that can do some damage. I'm looking forward to this item personally. Cool. All right. Ooh, here's another good one. Dark Shroud of Stillness. So I had to put a picture in here of the Teemo to show this because I really wanted to make it clear what this does. Shroud of Stillness shoots that big purple beam ahead and mana reaves them for 35%. Dark Shroud of Stillness, it's a higher mana reave, so 50%, but if you'll notice, it shoots forwards and backwards.
Yep, and it's going to hit you and your allies in addition to your opponents. So you have to be careful about both who you put it on and who's near them.
Yeah, I love the positioning puzzle here, but it also makes it so like you can't really Dark Shroud of Stillness cheese mid-fight because what's going to happen is you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to shroud these guys, but oops, I just shrouded my whole team as well.
You can't.
True,
It's just
true.
gonna be a little bit dicier for you.
True, true. So, like I said, this is a really fun item that can make or break a team fight, but is much more difficult to use, I think.
Yeah.
Cool. Armor plus tier. So Frozen Heart got a bit of a rework. Now it's 2 hexes, but lower attack speed. Makes it easier to use, and it's unique. Dark Frozen Heart is a even bigger slow of 50%, but also slows the allies nearby the wearer for 50% as well. So, for example, let's say you're running 6 Assassin, probably not as good an item because you'd be slowing your Assassins as you jump back. But if you're running 2 Assassin, maybe this item's incredibly powerful.
Right. Anything that can get your... This is another positioning puzzle thing. You want to figure out how to get your Frozen Heart holder to get and hopefully stay as far away from the rest of your team as possible.
Yeah. I think another good one is like putting a Cavalier on the side away from your team so that they charge in and can apply this. That's another good application. But should be a pretty cool item. And again, 50% attack speed is very powerful. So
nothing to sneeze at.
Yep, agreed. All right, belt versus belt. Okay, so this is one that's interesting. When we first made this, it was 2,000 bonus health instead of 1,500. And the wearer loses 100 health each second. Player response that I've seen so far to this item is that it's awful, right? It's just like, why would I want to lose 100 health a second? The thing to remember is we have traits like Renewer, which are...
Sorry.
No worries.
I had an urgent phone call from Louisville, Kentucky. I will mute my phone.
Nice. You get the outtakes in this video. Okay, so you have traits like Renewer that are percent based. So for example, even 2 Renewer, you're gaining 75 health a second, kind of countering this. We have champions like Vlad, who are constantly healing. And then the one I did that broke a playtest that one time was Darius. I had a Shadow Warmog's Darius, who every time he cast a spell was healing a percent of his base health, and he would keep casting so many times he basically went infinite. There are a lot of really good ways to use this item. I actually think it's even just good on a Bloodthirster Draven, for example, as the defensive item that keeps him alive. So don't sleep on this item.
The answer to why would I want to lose 100 health each second is you don't. That is the drawback, but there are a dozen ways for you to get around it.
Yeah. I think in this case, if it has to be 1,800 or 2,000 again, we can always balance and buff this. But again, I think this item is like insanely good. So.
By the way, while we're here, I want to note that the self-damage from all of these items, self-damage never generates mana.
Yeah.
So this isn't a way to help get someone to cast faster or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I have seen players ask that. So good bring up. But yeah, no ways to cheat your mana system there. Cool. Let's keep going. Belt versus rod. More evil Nomicon. Sorry, I keep joking about what it used to be named, but let's not talk about that. This item has definitely gotten some big reactions because you see this item, and you see 100% of the target's maximum health, and you think, I'm just going to kill everybody. And the answer is kind of, yeah, it's pretty good.
You're gonna kill everybody, but you're gonna kill everybody kind of slowly. You'll see it is over 25 seconds, so you want to get it applied as soon as you can in the fight, to as many people as you can, and that's a little bit different from Morellonomicon, where you are a little bit more likely to need to reapply it after 10 seconds, but eventually.
Yeah.
But this can kill something on its own, given the fight going on.
Yeah. The big thing to note here is that the drawback is your ability does 50% less damage. And so you are paying a big burst price. You will burst people slowly. I kind of see at day one a lot of people trying this item. And what'll happen is they'll apply this a lot, realize they killed nothing, and take a bunch of player damage because they tried to slow burn everything. This requires a very specific kind of comp to operate around. So
Yeah, and this isn't something you want to put as the last item for a little bit of extra health on your carry or anything like
yeah,
that.
agreed. Cool. Belt plus cloak. So one change we have to highlight, by the way, it's not on the tooltip yet. We still have to add it to the tooltip here. Is Zephyr is no longer blocked by Quicksilver. So Zephyr got a lot more powerful this set. No more just Quicksilver carry in the corner, I'm safe. You actually have to reposition again. This one in particular, though, is instead of a 5-second Zephyr, it's an 8-second Zephyr. But when they come back down, they have 30 AD and ability power for the rest of combat.
Yeah, there may even be some rare situations where you kind of want the enemy to Zephyr a particular one of your units. And you might be trying to have a more complex Zephyr battle with people during the planning phase than you're used to.
I think that's a great point. I actually have lost games on Fates before because it's like I think I Zephyr their perfect carry, and all I really did was help their carry avoid a bunch of initial burst. Having that then same carry come back and have an extra AD and ability power, whew, that could be real bad.
The nightmare is accidentally hitting the Kale with the turbulence.
Oh god, yeah.
That's gonna be the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, because you just protect the Kale for 8 seconds of the 20 seconds it needs to ramp up. Oh,
I
God.
may or may not have done that in playtest on Friday.
Nice, nice. Yeah, the other one is a redeemed champion, because then it just comes back down and it has all those redeemed stacks, and it's... So, and again...
Missed a chance to kill it.
Yep. Again, continuing the theme here, that these items are harder to use, but when used correctly, are really powerful. So... Alright, belt plus bow. Ooh. This is one that my sister is really excited about. She's a big Zerat Portal fan. With Unstable Zerat Portal, it only has 500 health instead of like 2250. But when it dies, it goes boom for 777 true damage.
This is a large amount of damage. And this is something that, especially in the early game, can end up topping your damage charts. But it is not going to be able to tank as much as regular ZZ Rot Portal.
Yeah. Does this item taunt like the base one?
I suddenly don't know. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. We'll double check. I don't think it does though, but we'll have to double check. It could just be a tooltip error. But yeah, we'll double check.
Do you want me to check now?
No. We're good. Okay. We're good. But yeah, like I said, this is definitely a cool item. Can really explode, and because it's true damage, it can get through some of those frontliners. So,
yeah,
nice. All right. Ooh, this is one that was getting a lot of spicy reactions. I like this item. Vengeful Trap Claw. This item probably normally you put like a Trap Claw on, say, your carry. Like maybe your Aphelios, to protect them from a spell. Probably don't want to do that with this item, because what happens is when it bursts, it will go to the person who burst the bubble. So, you don't want your Aphelios jumping into their backline near their Vel'Koz. But put this on someone like a Jax or a Riven.
Yeah. This item is going to end up being much better on your frontliners, brawlers, someone who you're gonna feel a little bit cheeky about ending up in the enemy backline. That a dark part of you wants to put an assassin spatula on. This is going to be a more reasonable version of that, of doing that.
Yep. And then I think the combo everyone's excited about is this plus the Dark Zerat portal. So it's like jump into the back line, die, create the dark, Zerat portal, and then boom.
I will personally be watching every YouTube video featuring that dozens of times.
Nice. Nice. All right. Belt plus tier. So Redemption got a pretty big rework. Again, if you want details of that, check out the other video. But now Redemption is basically this like AoE healing item that also reduces you from AoE damage. Sacrificial Redemption heals your entire board, so much bigger range, but for less, and it damages the wearer of the item.
Right. And something that we probably need to clarify on this tooltip is it does not heal the wearer. The wearer just damages themselves and does not receive the healing.
Makes sense. So for this item, I think for Redemption, it's sort of pretty clear. It's like group up, be in a really tight-knit circle, and protect your team. With Sacrificial Redemption, it seems like the opposite is true. It's like spread out, do your thing, and just make sure this person has a way of healing back up. Does that sound about right?
Yep. And this item is the only sacrificial item, the only self-damage item, like caveat, that can't kill the wearer on its own.
Oh, okay.
Because it is current health damage, it is never going to deal enough damage to the wearer to kill them. This is going to be an item where what you want to do is you want to make it so that no gust of wind, no stray leaf can touch that champion, and they're going to sit there and heal your whole board for a while.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, versus wanting to put it on someone who would be in the thick of it with a bunch of other champions like you would with regular Redemption.
That's a good point. Putting this on a backline renewer, for example, is probably a great way to just have your team have a nice constant amount of healing.
Yep.
Nice. Cool. Now, as a weird question, if I have two of these and they're on different champions, that's one way to sort of counteract itself, right? Is because then they'll each take 10% but deal 15%?
That's true. Although, because of how exactly the Sacrificial Redemption works, I believe if you put it on two different champions, you're going to be getting the slightest amount of diminishing returns.
Yeah, for sure.
For doing that, since it heals missing health damage.
Right, because it'll be 15%, then 15% of that right after, not a total of 30%. So yeah, you're right. There is diminishing returns there for sure. Cool. Good point. All right, Rod versus Rod. This is always, like, Deathblade was this, but simpler. This was always my quintessential example for, like, this is what a shadow item is. More spell power, less health. It's basically a reprint of Deathblade.
Although we have also made the confusing decision to phrase the ability power in percent in the shadow item version, I'm now noticing when I see them next to each other.
Yeah, this is all before our tooltip pass that is going into, I think, today before PBE. So hopefully when you play this on PBE, this will actually look correct. But you get the idea. It's instead of 70 spell power, it's 100 spell power, but you lose health. Pretty straightforward. Cool. Ooh, here's a crazy one. Rod and Cloak making Ionic Spark. So Ionic Spark lowers magic resist and zaps enemies. This does not lower magic resist, so you lose that aspect of it. It zaps enemies for the same amount. It zaps allies for a little less, for about half as much. But every time something is zapped, friend or foe, the wearer gains ability power.
This is the charging up battery pack item. There are a couple of interesting ways to play around this. You can put it on your assassin that's jumping into the enemy backline, not going to zap any of your allies. You get a bunch of ability power. And this becomes a little bit of a defensive item, but mostly an offensive item for that assassin. But you can also put this on someone who you know is going to be next to your champion, who you're making cast over and over and over and over again. They're going to get hurt, but the Ionic Dark Spark, as it is going to rack up a whole lot of damage. So this is actually an item that we've moved from being more of a utility item into a damage item to go on a carry.
Yeah. There's some really sick tricks you can do by putting this next to like Brand and Karma and things like that. You can really get some power to where this can start to rival things like Death Cap. So pretty cool item. Again, very difficult to use, but I think when people figure out how to use it, it'll do some good stuff. Cool. Ginsu, this is another pretty straightforward one. Instead of 6% attack speed per attack, it's 8% attack speed per attack, which means it stacks a lot quicker. This is sort of exponential growth, if you will. If you understand how exponential growth works, the more you attack, the quicker you attack, and the quicker you stack, and it gets pretty nutty. But you deal yourself 2% of your max health each attack, so make sure you have some way to get that health back.
Yep. I don't have anything to add to that.
Yeah, it's another simple, pretty straightforward one. Okay, Sacrificial Gauntlet. This is better Jeweled Gauntlet. And this is one, again, we talked about this with Infinity Edge, but be careful you don't mix and match these in a bad way that'll get you killed. But whenever you cast your ability, you lose 20% of your max health, but you get more power. Cool. All right.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, these are the straightforward ones. Let's keep it going. Oh, okay, Rod plus Tear. This is a very different one. So Luden's is gone. Archangel Staff is here. The more you cast, the higher your mana pool. You gain ability power. Archdemon's Staff of Immortality, completely different. Has nothing to do with spell power. Why don't you walk us through this one?
So, this is a little bit similar to Gargoyle Stoneplate in that it has become a self-healing item. We've added a couple of self-healing items to the set to help you solve the problem of I keep dealing myself damage with my items. This one is going to make your the person who it's on gain maximum health and, by extension, current health every time they cast. That scales with their max mana. Sorry. This is going to be rephrased before it goes live, but this item will uniquely from other max health gain effects like Lulu, you will gain less current health if your champion is under the effects of grievous wounds.
Right.
Even though you will still gain the full max health.
Yep. So a good example here is Tarek, who has a 200 mana pool. If Tarek has this item and is under grievous wounds, he will gain 700 max health, so that number will increase by 700. Then he will heal for 350 because it's cut in half from the grievous wounds.
Right.
Nice.
Even though normally the health gain mechanic means you gain X max health and therefore X current health.
Yep. Yeah, so a little different, but should be pretty good. And again, if you can use this on the right champion, you can kind of like continuously keep healing more and more and more. So expect to see. I expect to see something break this. But
yeah.
We'll see.
Hope it takes a bit.
Yeah. All right, Cloak plus Cloak. We talked about this with Bramble. Now it's time to show. And again, this is another different one than what you guys are seeing in your preview. But now it's actually very similar to base Bramble, where it's not going to reduce incoming magic damage by as much. But if you see a Jeweled Gauntlet, this item is way better than Dragon's Claw because it will completely negate all the bonus damage from that critical strike. So no more just like, i.e. Jeweled Gauntlet, Aurelion Soul killing your entire team, or in this case, Vel'Koz. Because if you've got this item, it's just going to tickle you.
This is going to be the anti-crit version of Dragon's Claw. So it, like Bramble Vest, is just going to be a different defensive option
Yep.
for a different situation.
Now, the interesting thing here to note is Bramble Vest has always reduced the crits of spells as well. This reduces the crits of auto attacks as well also. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So ends up being a little bit more generalist also, very much like Bramble. And I'm kind of interested to see the combinations of like, do people run Bramble plus Refracted Dragon's Claw, or both both Shadow versions. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yep. I'm excited.
Nice. All right, Cloak plus Bow. So this is basically, I think this is just a better version of Hurricane, because instead of 80% extra AD, you're doing 120%, but doesn't proc on hit effects, which
Right.
for this set I think basically means don't put this on Vayne.
And you could put it on Vayne. It's just not going to be as good.
Right. I think this item's amazing on like Draven, Aphelios, even like Jax, Riven, Yasuo.
Those are the people who are really going to make it.
Yeah. So, pretty straightforward item though. And again, Hurricane doesn't even work with Shojin anyway anymore, so you're not losing a ton here. I think this is just a great item. Okay, ooh, this one's spicy. Caustic Quicksilver. Instead of being immune to crowd control for 10 seconds, it lasts forever, but you have 25% less maximum health calculated at the beginning of combat.
That calculated at the beginning of combat line is that's old. Yeah, so this is going to be like Rabadon's and Deathblade. They're all making it so that you just have less max health in exchange for a pretty big chunk of power. In this case, anti-CC power.
Yep.
So you're going to get the opportunity to get your unit to do a lot more and probably keep itself alive, potentially in other ways, but less health to work.
Yep. And just because I'll ask the question, if I have this for 25% less max health, Shadow Death Cap for 25% less max health, and Shadow Deathblade for some reason, I don't know why I'm building these three items on the same character, what happens?
Going to have 25% of your total max health, and if you can make that work, then power to you.
Nice. All right, let's keep going. We got a little bit of time left here. All right, Cloak plus Tear. Oh, this is a good one. Just like Zeke's, this Chalice of Malice, but the difference here is the wearer is actually the person suffering. So instead of 30, 30, 30, it's 50, negative 20, 50. I think this item's insane, because if you've got a 3-item carry like a Vel'Koz, and then next to it you've got a Syndra carrying 2 of these, you just gave that Vel'Koz another 100% spell power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, Syndra will do 40% less damage, but Syndra is kind of more utility to protect the Vel'Koz there anyway, so.
It's going to throw people into the opposite corner just as many times.
Yep.
She's going to do a little bit less damage when she does it.
Exactly. So I think this item's great. All right. We're almost there. Bow plus Bow. This is another one that's changed since you've seen the description. But basically, this is pretty simple. RFC's been nerfed to only be 1 hex range, but 20% extra attack speed on top of what the bows already give it. This one is even more attack speed, but only if there's no enemies nearby. So it's just a little sharper, a little less consistent, but when it's on, it's a more powerful item.
Right. So this is going to be asking you to make sure that you are doing the positioning that you would benefit from with rapid fire cannon anyway. You already didn't really want anyone right next to your rapid fire cannon holder, probably.
Yep.
But now to really get the full benefit of the item, you have to.
Yep. Cool. Bow plus Glove. This is a hard one. But basically, instead of just piercing armor, Final Whisper pierces armor and MR, both. But the wearer also loses that armor and MR. So it can be pretty sharp, but really good against things like Redeemed. Really good if your comp has mixed damage. So it can be a pretty good item here.
Yeah. Really good if you can find a good person to apply it for.
Yep. Cool. Bow plus Tear. I think we have like 6 items to go. We're almost there. So basically, this is a more powerful version of Static Shiv, which has been changed since you've seen this. It now no longer requires a crit to shred the MR. It procs more often, does a little less damage, but the wearer receives minus 50% attack damage. So, for example, your rangers that are high attack speed aren't getting as much physical damage. This is good at shredding MR and shifting your damage profile, but you know you got to be really careful to like not also then put Infinity Edge on the champion. So
Um, you want to put this on someone who is attacking quickly, but um, more for the utility of the item, and you're going to be potentially giving up a chunk of their damage.
yeah, I think my favorite user of this is Varus in the redeemed comp to help the Syndra and Vel'Koz do damage. That's a pretty good use of this.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, glove plus glove. This is, I think, I've been the one who's been using this the most in playtests because it's like if you're big brain enough to deal with all these shadow items and all the time, well, Trickster's Glove is for you because it's always two full shadow items. None of this component crap, none of this weakness. But if you make the mistake of seeing that, oh, my Trickster's Glove has two shadow Zeeks, and I put it right next to my Draven and didn't realize I was going to lose 60% of my attack speed, that's on you. So,
Yeah.
very difficult item to use.
Or a fun, chaotic way to learn all of the pieces of the shadow item system.
True.
If you want.
True. All right. Glove plus Tear, Hand of Vengeance. This one's a really interesting one because Hand of Justice, you have like a 50-50 chance at the start of combat to either get the AD and ability power or the Omnivamp. In this case, you get both every time, so no more of this 50-50 coin flip, but every time you get a takedown, it goes on, off. Is that right?
Yep. So what you're going to want to try to do is to try to get the most benefit that you can possible from this item without turning it off. So putting this on someone who you're able to position so that they're dealing a bunch of damage to a bunch of people with their ability and hopefully not killing anyone.
Yeah, that's true. Using this with something like the Shadow Hurricane we talked about earlier might be a really good way to like spread out maximum amount of damage, maximum amount of stealing, and then when you finally kill someone, hopefully it turns right back on real quick.
Hopefully you kill a second person and everything's fine.
Yep. Cool. So that's a fun one. And then I think this is the last base item here, which is Very Dark Blue Buff. So this one, a little weaker than Blue Buff, because instead of 20 mana, you only gain 10. But if you're below half health, JK, you actually get 40 mana. So kind of harder to use, but man, when this item is on, this item is insane.
Yeah, there's some champions who you can put this on who will, you can get them to dip down and back up again with their item, with their ability in the front line. There are also some fun ways to get this to turn on early on someone in the back line, like, for example, some start of combat self-damage.
Yep.
Some fun, dangerous ways
Yeah,
to
exactly.
get this bonus to turn on.
I think Rise in particular can use this item really well and clutch out a fight. Because if Rise can rapid cast, and I think Rise is at like 80 right now, or it's like 60, I think.
I think it's 60, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's 60. But then to have him go 40, auto, CC, like he can clutch out some fights with this item. I really like this item on him.
Yeah.
All right, so that is it, I think, for the base items. We got two more things to talk about. The first is this shadow item system also applies to the spatula items, meaning instead of our typical 8 spatula trait items, there are 16. We're not going to go over all of them. If you want to see exactly which ones get made, check out the Trait and Champions video with me and Whitrock. But basically, this means there are more item combinations than ever to cheat traits in, and there are some pretty fun ones.
Yeah. One memory tip is that all of the eviler traits, their spatulas are going to be shadow spatulas, and all of the good traits, their spatulas are going to be regular spatulas.
Yep.
If you're looking at one of the classes, like Cavalier or Skirmisher, you are on your own for remembering that.
The nice thing is there, I think we did a decent job of remembering that, like, Cavalier is tanky, uses armor. Skirmisher has AD, it uses sword, so hopefully there's some stuff there to help you, but I agree it's not, like, the easiest thing to remember, which is also why we changed them to emblems. Now every item is just an emblem, it shows the class, so it should be easier to recognize once you start learning the symbols.
Yep. Never again will you need to wonder, what is that item on that unit in the carousel?
Yep.
Which trait does it give?
Yep. I think as we were learning these, I found myself calling it out in our playtest just to remind everybody, like, that's Ironclad, that's Cavalier, I recognize them, yay! One other thing to note is you don't need the Shadow Spatula, you can use the Shadow item. Shadow Spatulas in particular are quite a bit rarer than base spatulas, because again, you can only get them off of the carousel. Shadow Spatulas never appear in the armory, they never drop from mobs, you can only get them from the carousel, and you can only get them from Draconic 5 if you're lucky. So...
yeah. Shadow spatulas are also their odds of showing up are completely disconnected from the shadow odds of the rest of the items on the carousel. I am so sorry.
No, you're fine.
From the shadow odds of the rest of the items on the carousel. So
Yep.
those things aren't factoring into each other.
Yep. So, but if you do get a Shadow Spatula, you're left with a choice. Do you use it for a trait item, or for our last slide, do you try to get a Force of Darkness? So Force of Nature, already a great item, +1 army size. Force of Darkness gives you +2 army size, which is insane amounts of power. But if you lose a fight, you take double damage. So, you know, stage 5, lose a fight, -36 health, no big deal.
Just a little bit of 36 of your health.
Yep.
We've actually, I think, yet to see someone win a playtest based off of Force of Darkness alone. I've been having people, hey, cheat in yourself a Force of Darkness, see if you can turn the playtest around. This is a really difficult item to use.
Yeah.
This is going to be a comeback item that asks you to come back or die.
Yep. Yeah, early reactions players have already been calling it the 1st or 8th item. And it kind of is. It kind of is.
Totally.
Cool. All right, well, I think, yep, that is it for the deck. We went through every shadow item. I hope everyone is looking forward to using these. Chloe, I know you and Kent worked your butts off to make all these items. There's still probably a lot of balance work to do, but hopefully players enjoy this. Any closing thoughts on the shadow item system?
Nope.
Sweet. All right, well then, behalf of everyone on the team, we hope you look forward to Set 5 Mechanic. It's a little different than Chosen, but we expect to see a lot of really cool combinations with these and the traits. Be sure to check out the other 2 videos if you haven't already, one for the system changes, one for the traits and champions. Otherwise, that's going to do it for me and Chloe. Until next time, have fun on PvE!